It is Valentine's Day here in Gotham City, and it's sunny, despite the fact that we got, I don't know, how many inches of snow did we get yesterday? 7 to 10 inches of snow in another god-awful polar vortex nor'easter day. Happy Valentine's Day to you, Sarah Jacobs.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day, Alan.
So we have another fun-filled week of photography, and despite the fact that I thought we were going to be looking at photos related to Valentine's Day, I didn't actually come across any photos from Valentine's Day. I didn't see any photos of lovers or something. I'm sure Slate has some Magnum retrospective, as they often do, on best couples throughout the years, but we didn't find any, but we found some other good stuff.
We did.
So why don't we go and take a look at that as I share my screen. And the first thing actually we need to talk about is this, which was just, as far as we know, the winners of the World Press Photo Contest were announced today, or at least we saw them come across the wire today, so we would be remiss for not talking about them. And neither you nor I had a real chance to look at things in depth yet, although obviously we recognize a lot of the photos.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually hadn't seen this Stanmeyer photo that took first prize.
Oh, no.
And I read the background behind it. So John Stanmeyer was in Djibouti, I think, and it looks like maybe they're taking photos with their cell phones of some sort of solar eclipse or something, but actually they're trying to get a cheaper cell signal from neighboring Somalia. So they're holding their phones up in the air, trying to get a signal. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's this fantastic photo. Silhouette photos are obviously, you love them or you hate them. I think this is very well executed. The light from phones are so bright nowadays. You can illuminate people's faces in dark places. So, of course, that are, nearly as bright as the sun in this case. And it's such a contemporary photo.
Mm.
This wouldn't have existed, really, 10, 15 years ago. So I love it.
Yeah, and it probably wouldn't have won even 5 years ago. If it did exist. Just, it's very today.
We see John Tlumacki from the Boston Globe won for Spot News, second prize singles for the Boston Marathon stuff that he did. The final embrace photo, which we love as well, by Talisma Akhter, won third place. Sarah Naomi Lukowitz won first prize for story for the portrait of domestic violence. I mean, just some great winners in this. And a lot of familiar names, Marcus Bleasdale, John Stanmeyer, a lot of obviously like great photography, Al Bello, etc. Were you surprised at anything when you glanced at the winners?
I really haven't gotten a chance to look through these, so...
I will say one thing, because last year when Paul Hansen won, I wrote that blog post about why do all the photo contest winners look photoshopped?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I certainly didn't cause the reaction. I think a lot of people had the same reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like the photos, I dare say, look a little less photoshopped this year. I mean... They're still playing with contrast and some local toning, but they don't look like movie posters, thank God.
Scroll up to the top.
Yeah.
There's one that I feel like resembled it. Yeah, the first list, Typhoon Survivors, that looks
a little.
Yeah, I think it resembles last year's.
Kind of that desaturated, saturated.
Yeah,
look.
There's some vignetting going on, it seems like. Looks a little overdone.
Well, it didn't win first prize. It's
right.
It's a great photo. It didn't win first prize. John Stanmeyer's photo won first prize, and I think it's a good choice. And again, maybe we'll talk about this again next week when we have a little more time to look at it. This was a big week for women in photography.
Indeed. I think someone from Facebook actually did something that I like for once, which is amazing, and something that's good for photography. And that was the woman from Lean In, who also works at Facebook. got together with Getty Image and created the Lean In collection.
And we should clarify, I mean, she doesn't just work at Facebook. She's the chief operating officer, Sheryl Sandberg, who is
Sheryl Sandberg, that's right.
one big badass over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a great collection of images, and I noticed looking through them on Getty that it doesn't only change views of women, but I noticed a lot of images of men in this collection as well. Dads just interacting with their daughters, which is just such positive imagery, and I was happy to see that thrown in there with these.
I mean, I feel like this is not only an assault against traditional stock photography of women, but kind of like traditional stock photography in general, because there are just, you know, there are those tumblers out there that make fun of these different types of stock photography genres. I mean, there's just some awful stock photography, and so it's nice to see high quality stock photography that looks more authentic than stuff we've seen kind of traditionally, you know, back in certainly from the 90s.
Yes, definitely. As I was looking through the collection, it made me think of, I use Stocksky. Yeah.
Stocksky?
Yes. Yes. I use them a lot, and they, you know, they have this sort of like vintage feel to them. Everything looks sort of like film. And I noticed that in this Getty collection, and I had never seen Getty stock photos, you know, that had this more authentic feeling like that.
Yeah.
And
well,
I was kudos
to Sheryl Sandberg at Lean In, and kudos to Getty for kind of putting this collection together. You know, and it was interesting to read this article on the New York Times and then read some of the comments. Because obviously the comments, I mean, it's like trolls galore whenever you go into the comment section. But something that someone said, I think it was on the New York Times site, was that Getty actually has a lot of different types of collections that aren't so dissimilar from this, you know, like ethnicities, etc., different viewpoints from around the world. You know, there's that Flickr collection that they started maybe 4 or 5 years ago that has brought together a lot of very contemporary looking, almost art type photography, and I think that's doing fairly well. So, you know, as much as we like to poo-poo Getty, and obviously there are some questionable business tactics, I mean, clearly they have good people over there that are capable of editing good collections together, so I think that's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
We saw also friend of PhotoShelter, Barbara Davidson.
Yes. Oh man, she won the Newspaper Photographer of the Year award, and I am so happy for her. I got to meet her at Luminance in 2012, and she is just a powerhouse. You know, it's so obvious right off the bat how passionate she is about her work, and I'm happy for her on this one.
And also just like a cool chick.
Oh, amazing. Yes, a very cool chick.
And, you know, contests, you know, you can take them or leave them, but I think there's something to be said about people who are consistently in the winners list for contests. And Barbara is certainly one who's won Pulitzers and is always in the topic of conversation. And just consistently really puts out great work. And, you know, she's not a flash in the pan, clearly. She's been at the LA Times for a long time. She's won a lot of awards. And, yeah, go, Barbara.
Go, Barbara.
So we are doing the good for women in photography this week, the Lean In initiative with Getty, Barbara Davidson, and then you pulled this one, the motorbike girl gangs of Morocco.
Yes, I found a show here in New York that I really want to go to. This collection looks incredible. It's a collection by Hassan Hajij, and these women just look incredibly badass. And he has this great aesthetic for mixing this traditional classic style. You know, as they're wearing veils, they're covering themselves, but it has this vibrant look, and you know, it's referencing pop culture with the brand logos that surround the women. But they've just got this air of confidence that's just infectious, and I love it.
Those are like cans of, this looks like orange Fanta.
Yep.
Which is popular worldwide.
Yeah, and they've got Pepsi in there too. It's just, I love that mixed media stuff. It's great.
You know, the interesting thing to me about this is at least in the United States, I think when you hear motorbike, you think motorcycle. You don't
Mm,
necessarily think scooter. And when you think motorcycle and you hear gangs, you think of Hell's Angels and these other groups
yes.
with on the Harleys and tricked out. And so it's just a weird juxtaposition of what I expected to see with like these cool chicks on their scooters
Right.
in a very like pop culture way, but pop culture, but still in traditional garb, even though they're like really bright traditional garb.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, the series is called Kesh Angels, which I think is a really great play off of Hell's Angels, and I would much rather be a Kesh Angel than a Hell's Angel
Okay, I
after
would
looking
agree
through
with
these.
that. But Hell's Angels, they live a life of crime, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't want you to do that.
Okay. All right.
What do we got here? Look at this. It's time. It's almost time, I guess, for the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, which has been going on for many years. So I think we're getting into the not so great for women.
50th
50th anniversary cover.
50th anniversary, yeah.
And maybe I should start with this post, which was Barbie and Sports Illustrated got together to do, I think it was a 4-page advertorial
Mhm.
where Sports Illustrated great photographer Walter Yos, who I think is one of the few people who's photographed every Super Bowl as well, like something just insane. And he's shot many, many of the issues and spreads in the swimsuit issue, was hired to shoot Barbie in a swimsuit as well, which just seems ridiculous to me.
It does. I'm surprised they didn't get a product photographer or
Right?
something. Yeah.
But I guess they wanted the guy who was shooting. So I guess this is Barbie in a swimsuit, and the hashtag is unapologetic. And Barbie has suffered a lot of criticism over the years about being sort of an unrealistic body image for girls. And of course, the Barbie product manager was like, we've never tried to portray Barbie as a real person,
Hmm.
and so we're hashtag unapologetic about it. Which is
What I want to know is, I mean, the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated, it's celebrated. It sells the most out of any of their issues throughout the year. But this advertorial, I feel like it kind of cheapens the issue. What do you think, Alan?
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
I mean, I understand the need to sell ad units, and I don't know I don't know why the tie-in with Barbie was. Maybe they're celebrating some anniversary or something. But in comment, and I know that you're a feminist, so I'm interested to see your take on this, which is it's weird for people to criticize the unrealistic body image of Barbie when you have supermodels wearing tiny bikinis, because supermodels are freaks of nature in the same way that professional athletes are freaks of nature, right? There's nothing you
Yeah.
can do to get a body or a face like these 3 women who are on the cover.
Right.
Thank God it wasn't Kate Upton again this year. So glad to see them
You
spreading
were
it out.
really worried about that. You were worried.
I really wanted Emily Ratajkowski. I don't even know I pronounce her name right, but the girl from the Blurred Lines video who apparently is in the issue this year. I think she's just a fresh face, that we haven't seen. But hey, I'm not going to complain about Chrissy Teigen and Nina Agdal and Lily Aldridge. I think they look great in this cover.
They do. They look great. They look great. They look way better than Barbie.
I'd have to agree with that. You also found this one, the Vanity Fair, which often does retrospectives of photography, has
Yes.
a little glimpse back in time.
Yes, this was kind of fun to look through and read the article. They talked to a lot of the photographers who have shot this issue throughout the years, and to some of the models. And the models were saying, I still, even though I was in it in the 70s, or like, I still get my picture in the mail asking for my autograph.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now, I was a teenager in the 80s when who I considered to be the real supermodels were around, the people like Elle Macpherson. And boy, when this issue came out, it was like, hello, It was a great time. It was great. I have great memories of it. Nowadays, I'm like, whatever, swimsuit. I'm from Hawaii. I see people in swimsuits all the time. But back in the day, it meant something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and today it just means Barbie. I don't know. It's gotten worse.
So Sarah, in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, I thought it was only fair that I wear a swimsuit today. So I am doing the entire broadcast in my swimsuit.
Oh, there you go. Good.
But, fair is fair. Fair is fair. Okay, check that out on Vanity Fair if you want to see some of those photos. We continue, obviously, to see every week new camera announcements or the actual delivery of cameras. And Sigma purchased this company called Foveon. I think they purchased them maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. And Foveon had this crazy technology for capturing light. So, and the big thing was, even though we're not in the megapixel wars, because with lower megapixels we have better fidelity with our color. And so here is the DP2 using a 19.6 megapixel Foveon sensor. And I'm just really interested. I mean, I know nothing about this camera, and I know nothing about the technology because it hasn't been released yet. I mean, the Foveon's been around for a while, but the camera hasn't been released. The form factor is like really interesting. I mean, after we saw that Sony QX100, which is just the barrel of a lens, and that's the entire camera, and it was really hard when I tested it. It was really hard to hold and know whether you're level and whatnot. Mm-hmm. This looks like it's kind of looking like a hammer, like I could hold this thing.
Yeah, talk about a camera of the future. I mean, this is totally different than, the Nikon DF, where it's trying to go back in time. This looks weird.
Yeah, and we don't know whether it's weird good or weird bad. And
no, not at all.
I hate to keep bashing the Nikon DF because, again, I'm a Nikon user. But, I had a pretty long conversation yesterday with a very well-known photographer who is a Nikon shooter, and he was like, I don't know what they were thinking with that.
Oh, man.
They have a legacy, and Nikon has a legacy in SLR bodies, and I think they're really trying hard, and I think the Z series mirrorless cameras that they did were okay, but not as good as this guy, the Fuji X-T1. You know what's crazy? Like Fuji, what was Fuji? They were like a film company. When you think about great cameras in the history of cameras, you never think to yourself before maybe 5 years ago, you never think, oh yeah, Fuji had this really killer. I mean, I know they had some really unusual film cameras like with bellows and whatnot. There was a G something or another. I can't remember what it was. But starting with the X100, which I had for about a year, which is a compact APS-C camera, and then with the whole introduction of their whole sort of mirrorless cameras, they have just been killing it. And the X-T1 has been delivered to people, and it's an SLR style body, but it's much smaller, APS-C sensor. It has, for the gearheads on the call, it has on-chip phase detection, so there's not a phase detection unit to the side. And Fuji, the X100S focusing is like lightning. Like, I can't believe how fast that thing is. And John Workman from our office uses that, and he loves it. So, man, Fuji, you're killing it, Fuji. Maybe you guys are the camera of the future. Camera of the future.
Man. That's a big thing to say.
I did, as you know, I use my Sony RX1 pretty extensively. And I wrote a review today on the PhotoShelter blog at blog.photoshelter.com about how I'm faring with it 1 year later. And as I was writing it, I was like, every product should have a 1 year later review. Because there's so much excitement about a camera or any product like a computer, and nobody really knows how it's going to perform over time. And so I've found, as some people have said, that the build quality on Sony's isn't as good as it is on other cameras. Certainly not as good as my Nikon. And I would say, I mean, some people would say, well, but Alan, it's a point and shoot. But I would say, but it's a pro point and shoot at a pro price, and therefore I should never have trouble with the on-off switch. Big
Oh,
sticky. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
definitely.
So I had to send it in for service for a second time within it's been about 12, 13 months, which is kind of disappointing because my warranty's up at the end of the year and they wouldn't allow me to extend it. So I guess I have to try to sell it right around November of this
Man.
year and
Oh.
hopefully recoup some dollars on that and get a new one with a longer warranty.
Hmm.
But
Would you go for the Fuji, maybe?
I don't, I really love the size of the Sony.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the full frame because the full frame for me, I can't really tell the difference between, except for the lens choice, obviously. I can't tell the difference between the quality of the file on the Nikon and the quality of the file on the Sony. Whereas when I used the first generation Fuji, I could tell. But I'm sure it's gotten much better. I mean, technology is amazing. It's progressed so far in such a short amount of time. We have, speaking of those movie posters or photos that look like movie posters, I came across these images
Oh, yeah.
by Cristobal de Valle Morel from the building, the extension of the Panama Canal, Canal de Panama. And first of all, I remember hearing that they were extending the canal to make it wider for the larger ships and whatnot. I had no idea the scope of the project. So, Wikipedia Panama Canal and just look, they're several years behind, as you might expect. They're a few $1 billion short, and they've stopped construction because they don't know who's going to pay for it. But I came across these images, and you look at the toning of the sky and the concrete, and you're just like, really? This ran as news photography? Now, every country has their own aesthetic and their own rules, and this is from El País, the international version of El País, so it's coming from a Spanish language country, and I guess maybe there are, like some European countries, that are okay with a higher level of photoshopping or toning. It's not moving things around in the photo, but it certainly looks weird to my eye.
Yeah, it definitely looks strange. It's like HDR.
Yeah, it's like awful HDR.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Correct.
So, I mean, look at this first photo, like kind of down the alleyway, right down the center of the canal extension. And then I came across an article on Quartz, which is a news site. And here's like the same place. I mean, obviously from a different vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
But look at this photo, and look how, this looks like something if I was standing outside my window and I was looking at this. That's what real life looks like.
Yeah.
And then I look like this, and I'm like, what? What horrible student photo project went awry?
Oh, man. Yeah. Different. Yeah, very completely different. Well, different day. Look, he had some clouds in the sky. I don't know.
This guy wouldn't have won World Press Photo. That's all I'm saying. Not this year. Not after the backlash.
No, absolutely not.
All right, what else do we have here? Yes. So we're ending on a good note. Well, I guess it's a little mixed here.
Yeah.
So the element of surprise in photography is always a very interesting thing, and certainly when you're doing street photography, there's always the element of surprise, and you're ready to get that decisive moment, etc. And so the Mimi Foundation, back at the end of last year, did a whole project where they took cancer patients, and they basically told them to close their eyes. They didn't put any mirrors in front of them. And then stylists and makeup artists and hair stylists came in, and they just did them up in a ridiculous fashion. And then a photographer was behind a two-way mirror with a high-speed camera and a still camera with strobe. And they basically did these little mini high-speed portraits of them with the reveal, if you will. Did I get that right?
Yeah, with the reveal. I love that they have the timestamp at the bottom.
Oh yeah,
One
it's like 1
second
second,
later.
right?
Yeah.
And just wonderful. I mean, I've known a number of people with cancer. I've known a few people who've passed away from cancer, and it's just a horrible, horrible disease. And the way that some types of cancers really sort of make once vibrant people sort of waste away. It's just staggering. You just see that literally the life being sucked out of them. And so to see this series of portraits where we don't know the status of these people's health, other than they are cancer patients. But to see this, 10 times over, and everyone is dressed up in just like ridiculous fashion, but ridiculous fun. And honestly, like if I had cancer, freaking dress me up like every day, new hairdo, different wig. Why not?
Why not?
So I love these. So check, Mimi Foundation, and the name of the project, If Only for a Second. So you can Google that and see these. And then Sarah, you found this project.
Yes. Yes, I came across this photographer sitting down to tell everyone that he loves that he has AIDS, and this series really resonated with me, and I think as a viewer it resonates with a lot of people, because you're going to look through these and try to figure out which person best represents you if you were to hear someone tell you that. Everyone's reactions are so varied, but you're looking through it and you're like, which one do I connect with the most if I were to hear this news that a close friend of mine was sick.
Yeah.
And I just love that this photographer turned to his art, to help him through this process of bringing this terrible news.
So who did you find yourself connecting with?
The woman right above that you just scrolled probably through.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be me. I think that would be me.
It's kind of a crazy project.
It
I
is.
mean, it's the same thing when you get a text message or a phone message or an email, and all the person says is, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And so, and I think that the more life experience that you have, the more that kind of screws with your brain, because you can think of just the wackiest things that could be happening in those scenarios, and oftentimes it's just innocuous. But I can't imagine this photographer being like, "Hey, come on over. I want to take a portrait of you and tell you something."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He had prefaced all of his sitters with, "I have something to tell you," which, yeah, it's a very loaded sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. Oy.
So, yeah. Oh, we ended on a sad note, Alan.
We did. I should have put the Mimi thing for last, because that's a happy note.
That's more happy.
But I mean, I'm happy for the photographer to have the opportunity to be with a bunch of friends and loved ones, and actually spend the time with them one-on-one to tell them what's up.
Yeah.
That's all very nice.
It is.
So I guess next week, Sarah, I'm off to Iceland to see the Northern Lights. Maybe you will have a guest.
Oh, maybe I will.
So I will say, my Sony RX1 is in the shop, so that won't be going with me to Iceland. But I kind of need the Nikons anyway. I need something a little beefier to handle 30 minutes in the cold or whatever it is.
However long you can stand it out there.
Yeah, well, I have this I came back from Hawaii last month in the midst of the polar vortex #2. And it was just freezing. And once I hit the ground and got back to my apartment, I said, you know what? I'm going to try to find the warmest coat I can. And I did. I found that. And you've seen it a couple times. It's like literally like a sleeping bag.
Yes.
So despite the fact that it's significantly warmer in Iceland than it has been in New York, I'm going to take that coat. I'm going to take my D800. I'm going to take my beefy tripod, because I think I need to do 30-second exposures or whatnot. And I hope to get some photos that I'm proud of.
Oh, you're going to get beautiful shots. Definitely. You got to come back and show us.
Yeah, maybe in 2 weeks we can show some of my photos.
That would be great.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But yeah, hey, find a guest person. I'm sure. Well, the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition will be out at that point. And you know, this happens too, which is like last year. I think it was last year. Kate Upton on the cover was just not a good photo. It was like a lower angle. She had kind of a weird pose. I mean, the lighting was kind of traditional Sports Illustrated lighting, but not a good cover.
Who took that? Was it Terry?
That was Walter Yost. That was Walter Yost.
Okay.
So it's not a given just because, you know, it's the man taking the photo and he's got the cover that's good. And I don't necessarily blame him 100% either, because obviously there's photo editors and whatnot, but was not my favorite cover.
Mm. Well, maybe this year we'll beat it out.
And on that note, that's not even that. That's not happy. What? Yeah, sorry. Well, happy Valentine's Day to you, Sarah Jacobs. I hope you're doing something fun tonight.
Thank you.
With
Happy
friends
Valentine's
or family.
Day.
And that is it for another edition of PhotoShelter Happy Hour Live. We're glad that you could join us again. Maybe join us next week, or join Sarah next week, and then I'll be back in 2 weeks with some tales from Iceland. And for Sarah Jacobs, this is Alan Murabayashi. I can say my name. Signing off. We'll see you again later. Bye-bye.